and welcome to this week's tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pretty pink vintage piped buttercream cake. Don't forget to check out my other Valentine's Day videos in the description box below. While you're there, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and let's get to piping. To make our Valentine's Day cakes, I have a couple of 4-inch cakes here. This is my classic chocolate cake recipe. I'm gonna link that in the description box below. But I've got two 4-inch cakes. They're about 2 inches tall here. I'm only gonna use 3 layers though. I've also got some raspberry Swiss meringue buttercream. I've got a small offset spatula. I don't need a big one since these cakes are so small. 6-inch cake board, bench scraper, bit of simple syrup, and my turntable. And I've also got my nice large serrated knife, which I'm going to use to tort these chocolate cakes. Let's unwrap them, and they're nice and chilled right now, so it will make it easier for assembling. Never try to assemble a hot cake, it will not go well. Okay, so we need 3 layers in total. I'm going to cut the taller of the two if there is one. This one looks a bit taller. So I'm gonna cut that first. Just cutting the top right off. And I'll slice this in half. Make sure it's nice and leveled. Then I only need 1 layer out of this, so I'll probably do kind of one slightly thicker layer. So I'm gonna cut this maybe into like 2/3 at the top. And then this piece is for a snack. So I've got my 3 layers total of cake here, and now it's ready for assembly. Starting with your 6-inch board on your turntable, let's smear a little bit of our raspberry buttercream. And I am gonna share my raspberry compote recipe, which I used to make this buttercream, in my new membership. So make sure you are signed up for the waitlist in the description box below this video. I'm gonna share lots more too, like my vanilla cake recipe, which is exciting. All right, so put a little syrup, put a little bit of buttercream, and just smooth that out with our small offset. And we're only doing 3 layers because I find it a bit more proportionate doing a 4-inch cake with only 3 layers as opposed to 4. It gets kind of tall and skinny and a bit awkward looking. Yeah, for these mini cakes, I think 3 is more than enough. Don't forget to peel your parchment off as you're going if you have any stuck to your cakes. Make sure it's nice and flat, then you can peel your parchment. Final bit of syrup. Then we seal it all in with a crumb coat. So I'll smooth out the sides first. And this is something also I'll be going over in much more detail in the membership. Kind of the assembly, structure of cakes. Just make sure that everything is completely covered with the buttercream. Don't want any air getting in there and drying out your cakes. So don't put your crummy buttercream back into the same bowl. It's gonna contaminate it with all your chocolate crumbs. Put it in a separate one, just smoothing out the top here so it's easier when we go to mask it. Making sure everything is nice and even, and then we can pop this in the fridge or the freezer depending on how much time you've got. All right, so I'm going to pop this in the freezer for about 20 minutes, then we're gonna be ready to mask. We are masking our pink cake. So I'm just using this pink buttercream that I created using a batch of Swiss meringue buttercream, color mill in hot pink, caramel, and red. So these 3 colors mixed together, mostly the pink, a little bit of red, and then just a touch of caramel to kind of warm it up a little bit. And that is how I got this pink color. So I'm just going to mask this quickly. It doesn't have to be perfect because we will put quite a bit of piping on it. It's gonna be like a vintage style piped cake. We'll make a slightly darker buttercream to pipe on top of this pink. All right, I'm gonna pop this in the fridge. We'll do a quick scrape on it before we get to piping with our darker pink buttercream. We're just doing a quick scrape of this pink cake before we get to piping on it. So I'm just gonna clean up the top and the sides. ready to pipe our cake now. So I've got some buttercream that is just a couple of shades darker than our original buttercream here. So I just added more of the same colors, hot pink, red, and a little touch of caramel. I'm gonna fill up my piping bag, and we're starting with a PME 13 tip. All right, so the first step we want to do is just to mark out our cake generally. So I'm going to do, I think I'll divide it by 4 first. So I just mark the top and bottom, and we're gonna pipe over this, so it really doesn't matter if we can see these marks. Then I swap it around and I do the top and bottom again, try to make it as even as possible. Okay, so we've got our tip, and we're gonna start with kind of like a fleur-de-lis shell going upwards. So maybe what I'll do first is mark out around the same depth on each of these, just so I have a general idea of where I want to start. So now we just have to pipe, starting from our little marking all the way to the top, and we're going to be making a shell, so it'll be fatter at the bottom and a little bit tapered at the top. So just one side coming like this, and the other side doing the same. So we'll just continue on with that. You can see, right? I want this to look kind of like vintage and homemade, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Next, I've got my Ateco 102 tip, which is just a pedal tip, and we're gonna do some swags. So I'm just gonna start kind of right below where the fleur-de-lis is, and kind of just do like a little up and down motion. And you can mark these out beforehand if you're not comfortable doing this, but I think it's a small enough cake that we can manage without that. All right, I've switched to my PME 57R tip. Again, another pedal tip, and I'm just gonna put another layer of ruffles right on top of this one, just to add a bit more depth. We want it to look like super over the top and vintagey. Switch to my Wilton 104 tip, another ruffle tip. I'm going to do a ruffle all the way around the edge at the top and the bottom now. Make sure you have the thin part on the outside. So I'm doing kind of like a petal shape, just kind of like a little loop, so that I can get a nicer ruffle. Do the same at the bottom. I usually use a larger tip for this, but since the cake is so tiny, I don't want to go any bigger than this. We're using the Ateco 21 star tip. So again, just tracing right around where we have this border. Just gonna do a nice shell border right on top of the edge. Now we'll do our shell border around the bottom. Next, I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller star tip, the Ateco number 17. So first I am going to pipe inside here. So I'm just gonna do a small shell border just to cover up that like inside edge. Next, we're going to attempt a border that I've never tried before. It's gonna be like two little C shapes or like two little comma shapes attached to each other, just going in opposite directions. So let's give it a try. I'm gonna do it right between the ruffle and the star tip here. Let's do one more shell border on top of where we have these two shell borders already, just to add a little extra height. We're gonna use a PME number 3 tip here, and we'll just finish off any little areas that look kind of incomplete. So the tops of these little fleur-de-lis, I always like to add a little dot of buttercream. And then I'm gonna add a couple beneath each of those fleur-de-lis to kind of fill up this space. Maybe I'll add 3 or 2 dots, let's see. I think 2 looks nice. All right, now maybe a little dot beneath each of the fleur-de-lis to kind of finish off all of those intersections between the ruffles. I think we are done. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my other Valentine's Day tutorials in the description box below. And if you do make any of them, tag me on Instagram at Finespun Cakes with 2 S's. Don't forget to grab all of the tools, equipment, and everything you'll need to make this in the description box below. Subscribe to my channel while you are there, and I will see you next time.